meals to deliver to the homeless in Venice. And then in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, we've been able to launch in the last 3 weeks our mutual aid program to get food to families in need here on the west side. Currently we have about 26 households that we're serving with about 92 people total in that, and that's only in the last 3 weeks. We're just growing and growing. Every day we get more requests for help. It's presented challenges. We're building the airplane and learning to fly and trying to get it off the ground all at once. But we have had such wonderful support from the community, from Legato, from Mothers Group here in Westchester and Playa del Rey. Don't underestimate the moms. They'll turn out in mass. We are all 100% volunteers.
Having a direct impact on your local community like this, we're directly helping people who need it, is really important, and it sort of can bring up your spirits a lot at a time like this when there's lots of people who need help, and you can get out there yourself and volunteer and make a difference to those people who need it.
June is National Pride Month, the time of the year when we give focus to the ongoing issues of gender identity and gender equality. One of the city's best-known figures in the transgender community is Karina Samala. She is an advocate to some, a mother figure to others, a teacher, and a trailblazer. Here's her story.
I am Karina Samala. I am the current chair of the City of Los Angeles Transgender Advisory Council, and I'm also the founding chair and still a member of the City of West Hollywood Transgender Advisory Board. Both boards give recommendations to the mayor, the city council, and all government entities within the city on any issues regarding the transgender community. I am known to be the mother of the Los Angeles transgender community because I respond to all the calls from my community siblings or daughters out there, and anybody that asks for help, I go and help them. A lot of our older trans women already going through that age needs, healthcare and housing, and I'm very appreciative and very lucky that we live in a city such as Los Angeles and Hollywood. We have government officials who are there really helping our community, and that I'm truly grateful, because right now I go to a lot of our city council members and also the mayors that are there when I come and ask for help. They're there to help. I support Black Lives Matter. To me, all lives matter. I've worked with law enforcement. I sit on their advisory board in the Sheriff's Department in LAPD, doing policies that we were created for interaction with the transgender community. All the policies that are being used right now to help our community has gone through the work that our group had done. During the AIDS epidemic and stuff like that, we were really out there with nothing. A lot of people really looked down upon us and say, hey, we did this to ourselves, and they didn't even care about us. And so now we're having the coronavirus. Now they're targeting Asian American families and Asian American people, especially the Asian transgender community that we brought in the coronavirus. I see a really bright future, being there for each other, moving forward. United, we stand forward. Together, we rise. Happy Pride, Los Angeles. Being this is the 50th anniversary of LA Pride. Be safe, be proud, and be free.
Black Lives Matter, and I feel like today is the day that we're supposed to stand together and really show solidarity for what we believe in.
with myself if I don't do something to help my black brothers and sisters, my Latino brothers and sisters, my Asian brothers and sisters, all my brothers and sisters. This has gone on for far too long, and I've seen it going on. I've done little bits in the past to protest and try to be a part of change, but it just hasn't been enough. And now I'm going to do everything in my power to be there for them and to fight along with them. This is not my plight, but it is my fight.
I just want to be heard. I want us all to be heard, and I want us to be seen, and I want us to be seen that we're good people, and we're just out here just trying to survive as well, just as everyone else. And we're all equal. We all bleed red. We do. You know what I mean? We're no different than anybody else.
What I'm trying to accomplish is unity with the community. Doesn't matter what race you are. Doesn't matter where you're from. We're all in this fight together. We're one species, and that's human. And that's what I'm here for.
Compost collection resumes at the Atwater Farmers Market. It's the Day of the Ancestors Festival of Masks in Leimert Park. All this next on Virtual Things to Do.
Breathe, move, heal. Learn and experience Afro-diasporic dance with Baron Leitner. Each week includes an introduction to an Afro-diasporic social dance. The workshop series will culminate in a virtual performance for the 10th annual Day of the Ancestors, Festival of the Masks at the Leimert Park Art Walk. All ages are welcomed and invited to participate in this free series of public programs. For more information on this Zoom event, visit lacommons.org/Festival of Masks. Soundtrack for a Movement is a musical offering, a place to let go, and a call to cultivate our collective power. Each Saturday of Pride Month, they'll provide a soundtrack for this movement while amplifying Black and queer artists on their digital dance floor. Move, groove, dress up, dress down, perform and play in a virtual space that you'll co-create together. Bring your family, your pets, your costumes, whatever gets you in the party mood. This party is open to everyone all over the world. Check out Soundtrack for a Movement June 27th at 5 p.m. For details, visit their listing on Eventbrite. Bring your food scraps to the Atwater Village Farmers Market. They'll be collected and composted locally at their regional compost hub located at the Audubon Center at Debs Park. There is no right container to store and bring your compost. You probably already have a great bin, jar, or bag at home. Use what you have. The Community Compost Collection is volunteer-powered and community-funded. If you enjoy composting with LA Compost, they ask for a donation of $1 to $5 per drop-off. Take advantage of the compost collection at the Atwater Farmers Market, Sunday, June 28th. For information, visit lacompost.org. And that's a look at some virtual things to do.
That's it for this edition. I'm Saida Pagan. From all of us here at LA This Week, thanks for joining us. A reminder that you can catch us online at lacitywiew.org. We're also on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. See you next time for more LA This Week.
Good morning and welcome to the Los Angeles City Council. Today is June 24th. I am Nuri Martinez, the President of the City Council. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Blumenfield.
Blumenfield present.
Bonin.
Bonin present.
Buscaino.
Present.
Cedillo.
Present.
Harris Dawson.
Here.
Koretz.
Here.
Krikorian.
Here.
Lee. Councilmember Lee. Martinez.
Here.
O'Farrell.
Here.
Price.
Here.
Rodriguez.
Here.
Rue.
Here.
Wesson.
Wesson here.
And Councilmember Lee.
Present.
Thank you. 14 members and a quorum, Madam President.
First order of business.
Approval of the minutes.
Ms. Rodriguez moves and Mr. O'Farrell seconds. Next.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
Mr. Harris Dawson moves and Mr. Krikorian seconds. Next.
Madam President, would council like all items to go forthwith today?
Without objection, that will be the order. Next.
Madam President, there has been a request by the Department of Building Safety in regards to items 1A through J to receive and file item 1G as the lien has been paid and to continue the remaining items to August 19th, 2020.
Okay, without objection, that will be the order. Let's keep going.
Items 1 through 5 are items noticed for public hearing. For item 2, the tabulated value of the opposing ballots cast does not exceed the tabulated value of the supporting ballots cast, 69.78% to 30.22%. Thus, a majority protest is found not to exist and the proposed establishment of the West Adams Property and Business Improvement District may be authorized at this time. For item 3, the tabulated value of the opposing ballots cast does not exceed the tabulated value of the supporting ballots cast, 79.47% to 20.53%. Thus, a majority protest is found not to exist and the proposed establishment of the Pacific Palisades Property and Business Improvement District may be authorized at this time. For item 4, the tabulated value of the opposing ballots cast does not exceed the tabulated value of the supporting ballots cast, 84% to 16%. Thus, the majority protest is found not to exist and the proposed establishment of the South LA Industrial Tract Property and Business Improvement District may be authorized at this time. And finally, for item 5, the tabulated value of the opposing ballots cast does not exceed the tabulated value of the supporting ballots cast, 85.84% to 14.16%. Thus, the majority protest is found not to exist, and the proposed establishment of the Lincoln Heights Industrial Zone Property and Business Improvement District may be authorized at this time. Continuing on, items 6 through 30 are items for which public hearings have been held. Committee reports from the Rules, Elections, and Intergovernmental Relations Committee for items 6 and 7, and 21 through 29 have been submitted and posted to the respective council files. Items 31 through 38 are items for which public hearings have not been held. Items 39 through 44 and item 47 on the continuation agenda all are all items scheduled for closed session that have been waived by the Budget and Finance Committee. 10 votes are required for consideration.
Okay, without objections, those items are now before us, members. If you want to call any of these items special or wish to introduce an amending motion, please press your virtual hand. Mr. Buscaino.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to call item 30 for comments.
Item 30, called special by Mr. Buscaino. Any others?
Madam Chair, item 35 special, my staff tells me.
Hold on for just a second. We just want to make sure Mr. Buscaino is done. Hold on, Mr. Cedillo. Mr. Buscaino, are you done?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. That's it. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Mr. Cedillo?
He's done. I'm sorry. Good morning,
Good morning.
Chairman. Chairwoman. My staff tells me item 35, we're calling special. We're going to move to adopt the CAO report.
Which item is that?
Item 35?
Item 35.
And a second for that amendment?
I'll go ahead.
Second.
Second by Mr. Koretz.
Thank you.
Any others, Mr. Cedillo?
No, Madam Chair. Thank you so much.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Thank you, Madam President. Item 23 for questions to DCR.
Item 23 for Ms. Rodriguez. Any others?
That's it. Thank you.
Mr. Harris Dawson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Calling number 9 special. That concludes my specials.
Special for comments, or do you have an amending motion?
Amending motion.
Do you want to go ahead and read that into the record?
All right. I move that the matter of Budget and Finance Committee report relative to amending the mayor's proposed budget for fiscal year 2020 to 21 to identify funding for movies in the park for 7 parks in District 8, item number 9 on today's council agenda, CF20-0600-S18, be amended to instruct the chief legislative analyst to include this request for funding in their report for further considerations by the committee, and to strike the language and justice fund light item from the motion.
Second.
Second by Mr. Krikorian. Any others, Mr. Harris Dawson?
That concludes my request. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bonin.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to call item 45 special, and based on the answers to some questions from staff, I will have an amending motion to give some instruction, but I can't read it into the record yet because it'll be dependent upon what the answers are.
Okay. Very well, Mr. Price.
And for clarification,
hold on for just a second, Mr. Price. Madam Chair.
Thank you. Just, Madam President, item 45 is on the special agenda, so Mr. Bonin can call that special when we begin the special meeting.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Price?
Yeah, item 21 and 28, please.
Are these two items special, or do you want to introduce an amending motion?
No, just questions.
Okay. 21 and 28 for Mr. Price.
Correct.
Any others? All right, thank you. Madam Clerk, let's go ahead and take public comment. Why don't you read our call-in information for our public?
Thank you, Madam President. And public comment today, right at this point, will be for items on the regular and the continuation agenda. Public comment for the items on the special agenda, which are items 45 and 46, will be taken later when council begins the special meeting. As indicated on the agenda, members of the public wishing to offer public comment should call 669-254-5252 and use meeting ID number 160-535-8466 and then press pound. Press pound again when prompted for participant ID. Once admitted into the meeting, press star 9 to request to speak. Again, call 669-254-5252 and use meeting ID number 160-535-8466 and then press pound. Press pound again when prompted for participant ID. Once admitted into the meeting, press star 9 to request to speak.
Thank you, Mr. City Attorney. Do you want to go ahead and provide our speaking rules to the members of the public?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. To members of the public calling in, when it's your turn to speak, please state which of the agenda items you'd like to speak on. You have 1 minute per item to speak, up to 3 minutes total, and if you wish, 1 minute for general public comment. Please speak on your items before beginning general public comment. We will tell you when your time is up. When speaking on the agenda items, you must be on topic. Our goal is to get through as many speakers as we can. If you're not speaking on topic, or if we cannot tell whether you're speaking on topic, you will get one brief warning from me or the president. If you do not immediately get clearly on topic or again stray off topic, the president will cut you off and you will forfeit the rest of your speaking time and we'll move on to the next speaker. We will take 45 minutes total of public comment. Finally, for members of the public calling in to speak, as soon as you hear someone address you, you are live in the council meeting. If you're also listening to the council meeting on your computer, channel 35, or other device, please turn down the volume on those devices immediately. There is a time delay between the live meeting and the broadcast on those devices, and it will cause confusion if you continue to listen on those devices. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Let's go ahead and take the first caller.
Please state your name and the item you'd like to speak on.
Hi, my name is Sam Sachs. I live in Council District 5, and I'd like to give general public comment.
You have 1 minute. Go ahead.
I'll be brief because I know there are others on the phone who will back this up. I'm just calling for you to defund the police. This is months now, years that Black Lives Matter has been asking, demanding this of City Council. We've seen little action. We saw the $150 million proposed in cuts get cut down even further in the Budget Committee, in the Police Commissioners Board, or the Police Commissioners meeting. We saw the usual lack of accountability in allowing Michael Moore to spew his racist nonsense. This morning in the first ad hoc police reform committee, and who knows how long and too long, public comment was severely limited. If we are going to move responsibilities like 911 call responses away from the police, we need to move funds away from the police as well. Defund, disarm, demilitarize, and eventually abolish the police. Also, let's support a vacancy tax. We have a huge homelessness problem. I yield my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker.
Please state your name and the item you'd like to speak on. Please state your name and the item you'd like to speak on.
Brandon, general public comment.
You have 1 minute. Go ahead.
I'd like you all to understand an experience that I went through last summer. Imagine you're an ordinary law-abiding LA resident who rents a triplex around Montecito Heights. Imagine it's midnight and you're sound asleep when you suddenly awake to an LAPD SWAT team storming through your bedroom door. They point a rifle at your head, drag you to the porch in your underwear, bark questions at you, and search the place without warrant. All because one caller claimed to hear some unusual noise coming from the building. Now, let's say one afternoon about a month later, LAPD does it again. This time they drag everyone in the building to the street and handcuff you. Your neighbors stare in disbelief. A helicopter circles overhead. Once again, nothing was wrong. You get the feeling someone is simply trying to terrorize you or one of the other tenants, and the LAPD is all too happy to indulge them. Would you ever feel safe living there again? I didn't. I could have ended up dead, just like Breonna Taylor of Louisville, if you've heard of her recently. This could happen to you. It could happen to anyone as long as there's an LAPD as we know it. They have too many military-grade toys and no accountability. And that's why we need to defund the LAPD and adopt the people's budget to address LA's problems without...
Thank you, Speaker.
Please state your name and the item you'd like to speak on. Please state your name and the item you'd like to speak on. Please state your name and the item you'd like to speak on.
Hi, my name is Amy Shi, and I'd like to make general public comment.
You have 1 minute. Go ahead.
So I demand the City Council to adopt the people's budget and defund the police. When we say defund the police, we also mean the divestment of police goes to reinvestments in alternatives to policing and have robust community engagement in developing those alternatives. There's so many organizations in the community that have been working on this for years. You should be working with them instead of criminalizing them. Defunding the police is not a radical or new idea. To Council Member Koretz, as your constituent, I am calling you out for what you are. You are upholding white supremacy. How dare you compare calls to defund the police to the purge? The fact is that those words even came out of your police agency's bootlicking mouth demonstrates that you are acting to protect systems that privilege the wants of the rich white people at the expense of Black lives and communities of color. Your actions make it clear that preserving white comfort is more important than alleviating Black suffering. Just because you have quote-unquote Black friends doesn't mean you're any less of a racist. You should be ashamed of yourself. And as your constituent...
Next speaker.
Please state your name and the item you'd like to speak on.
Yes, my name is T, and I'd like to speak on general public comment, please.
You have 1 minute. Go ahead.
Okay. Defund and abolish the police, adopt the people's budget, LA, put our money in our communities where we need housing, healthcare, education, youth services, food security, and jobs. In the very words of you, President Nuri Martinez, this is not rocket science. BLM-LA and the coalition drafted the LA City budget for you. It works to benefit the people's basic needs. Adopt the people's budget, LA, please. And also, we need alternatives to policing. We need community input and guidance, what our community safety should be. Great, y'all passed motion item number 1 this morning, but I think that language is problematic. One, you can't have law enforcement partners advising on what community safety looks like, and also what will determine the criteria of what is considered a nonviolent response. That language is too vague.
Thank you, caller.
They happen to be home.
Please state your name and the item you'd like to speak on.
Hi, my name is Taylor Inoue for a general public comment.
You have 1 minute. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm calling to say first that I'm glad to hear that you plan to strike the language saying that you'd be using money from the Justice Fund to pay for the Movies in the Park initiative. It's just absolutely outrageous that you would even consider pulling funding that supports our vulnerable immigrant community in order to have movies in the park. It's just absolutely outrageous, and I can't believe it was even considered in the first place. And also, I'd just like to call to please to ask that you please support a vacancy tax. We definitely need to take care of our unhoused people at this time, especially during a pandemic. And also to reiterate that I'd like to have you all defund and abolish the police and adopt the people's budget. Thank you so much. I yield my time.
Please state your name and the item you'd like to speak on.
Hi, my name is Adam Smith, and I'd like to speak on number 36 and general public comment.
Okay, you have 1 minute for each. Go ahead.
All right. Yeah, I just wanted to say I appreciate the resolution promoting racial equity, inclusion, diversity in city government. Hold on, bud. I just think like a way to make a lot of this happen, like organically, is to take funding from the police department and to, you know, lessen contact between the LAPD and the Black community and other communities of color. And I think a lot of this stuff will, happen organically. So I just wanted to say that. And then public comment. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved just like a tree that's standing by the water. We shall not be moved. We reject community policing. We reject community policing. We shall not be moved. Reject community policing. We shall not be moved just like a tree that's standing by the water. We shall not be moved. Defund the LAPD. We want to defund the LAPD. We shall not be moved. We're going to defund the LAPD. We shall not be moved just like a tree that's standing by the water. We shall not be moved. What's up, Mikey Bonin?
Thank you, Speaker.
Please state your name and the item you'd like to speak on. Please state your name and the item you'd like to speak on.
Hi, my name is MG, District 4. I'd like to give general public comment, please.
Okay, you have 1 minute. Go ahead.
Thank you. First of all, I'm so tired of this yet. Like, over and over again, we are having these discussions, and the majority of the callers are demanding the same things. Defund the police, adopt the people's budget, invest in communities, reimagine public safety. Again, I remind you guys, if police haven't learned how to not kill people by now, they shouldn't have the power to do so at all. If you can't teach cops to have empathy, you can't teach them basic medical care. The city is tired of your empty sentiments and non-actions. Either do what we're telling you to or resign. If you want to prove that you're not racist, that you care about Black and brown people, defund the police. It really is that simple. Also, let's house every person who's on the streets. Yes to a vacancy tax. You guys literally have the power to house everyone. So it's not you
Thank
that
you,
homeless.
Speaker.
Please state your name and the item you'd like to speak on.
Hi, my name is Zach Frank, and I have been trying to comment since this morning's ad hoc meeting, but for this agenda, items 1 through 5, item 8, item 9, item 10, and a general comment, please.
Okay, you have 3 minutes for all your items and 1 minute for general public comment. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. On items 1 through 5, I can see that you guys are probably going to need some money for these projects that you're talking about, and actually probably also for items 9 and 10, 11, 12, 13. And I think the best place to find this money is to defund the police, because nobody likes the LAPD and what they've been doing, and that's where you can get the money from. They have like $1.8 billion. So take money from there, defund the police, follow the people's budget. On item 8, and kind of tying this back to the ad hoc meeting this morning, item agenda number 1, we absolutely do need to support homeless services. However, I am against the LAPD being involved in the process. They have shown themselves incapable of being able to peacefully interact with the homeless community. Not only that, but they also have absolutely no credibility with the entire city. The LA Community Action Network has much more credibility, both with the community at large and specifically the houseless community, and they would be the best people to talk to about how to go about interacting with the homeless, which is exactly what we should be putting more money into, and take that money from the LAPD. They don't deserve it. Finally, for my general comments, defund the police by 90% and adopt the people's budget. This is what we've all wanted. We keep calling you about this over and over for the past 3 weeks. I used to be a reformist a month ago, and then watching your LAPD riot and attack peaceful protesters made me an abolitionist. So the compromise is the people's budget. Use the people's budget. That's the compromise we can all live with, and maybe you'll make the rest of us happy. Wesson and Harris Dawson, y'all are dope, and it looks like you guys are really listening and starting to speak up for the city. Please keep raising your voice. Please keep speaking your mind. It really helps to hear this, and it feels like the city is finally being heard by the city council when y'all speak. Gil Cedillo, I have no idea what the hell you were saying this morning. You were all over the place. It felt really gaslighty. Seems that first you want to defund the police, and then you admonish us because people running away from gangs, well, cops or something. Dude, just stop gaslighting and pick a side. You need to step down, you corrupt little shit. And Chorus, that goes double for you, you capo. And Mitch O'Farrell, District 13 sees you. We're watching you. We know that you're spineless. So at the very least, use your spinelessness for good. Defund the police.
Please state your name and the item you'd like to speak on.
Hi, my name is Caitlin Vetter. I'd like to make a general public comment.
Go ahead, you have 1 minute.
Great. I ask that the City Council advances vacancy tax to the ballot and defund the police. As you've heard before, $100 to $150 million in cuts to LAPD budget proposed by Mayor Garcetti is not nearly enough. We need to defund the police to prevent them from committing any more atrocities. They should not be able to kill, brutalize, or use weapons banned in war against the citizens they allegedly serve and protect. We must defund the police and invest in our community's healthcare during this pandemic, as well as address the homeless crisis with more than just lip service. And speaking of housing and homelessness, I ask that you please advance a vacancy tax to the ballot. Both the vacancy tax and defunding the police are great ways to put more funding into community programs that this city really needs. Please listen to what your constituents are asking you, and please listen to community leaders and organizers from BLMLA and cut funding to and disarm the LAPD. I yield my remaining time.
Please state your name and the item you'd like to speak on.
I think we're.
Hi, yes, this is Richie Serjanko from Sunrise Movement LA and the People's City Council. I just want to give a general public comment. Can I go?
You have 1 minute.
Okay, thank you. Nuri, you're cool. You're staying off our radar right now, so good for you. Wesson and Marquise Harris Dawson, I really liked what you guys were saying today. You seem like allies of the people, and let's continue this momentum. I want to go to Gil Cedillo. Gil, are you fucking drunk right now? Like, you're like slurring your words, and you called Nuri chairman. Like, people on Twitter are saying like you've been drinking this morning. You've probably been drinking with your buddy John Lee, who's under investigation by the FBI. And for everyone listening at home, Paul Koretz, you're a liberal white supremacist. And, anyone grab a pen and paper. Paul Koretz's home phone number is 323-966-5957. Call and leave Paul a voicemail and say he's a liberal white supremacist. I yield my time. Fuck you, Paul Koretz.
Next caller.
Please state your name and the item you'd like to speak on.
Hi, my name is Rebecca Park, and I'm a constituent of District 9. I'd like to speak on item 36. Hello?
Yes, sorry, say that again.
I'd like to speak on item 36.
You have 1 minute.
Thank you, council members, for the motion for item 36. In support of item 36, I ask this council to go further into specifying auditing racist budgetary practices. First, the principal line of property tax revenues funding any police budget needs to end. Access to property ownership is disproportionately a result of systemic racism in terms of access to education, capital, and opportunities, and unfair land assessment values. Because property taxes bring in the majority of the LA City budget, it covers much of the police budget. This is a form of racist budgetary practice. Second, it is fiscally irresponsible and morally bankrupt for LA City taxpayers to underwrite and pay for police hate crimes against Black and brown lives via sweet plea bargain deals. It is a conflict of interest. Where done by the books, the LAPD would be bankrupt and closed. Defund the police and adopt the people's budget. Thank you.
Please state your name and the item you'd like to speak on.
Good morning, you fat cut, Mike Bonin. All items, please, in general public comment.
3 minutes and 1 minute for your general public comment. Go ahead.
Let's go to number 5. Thank you, the great one, Gil Cedillo, a.k.a. Gil Cedillo. No, he's not drunk. No, he's not a racist. Gil Cedillo is saving the 1st District from itself. Look what he did. The DWP shall not use money paid from the general fund. So what he's doing is he's taking horrible-looking homeless criminal encampments caused by Nuri Martinez and cleaning it up with DWP money. That's what Gil Cedillo does. So don't be bagging on the fucking guy, because you see, whenever you speak against City Hall, ask Marquise Harris Dawson what happened in January. They sent the LAPD out and pulled a gun on him. Yes. And, he didn't want to say nothing about it, but Stitches didn't get stitches this time, right? So now we get number 31. DWP, a criminal enterprise. Sell the DWP. Susanna Reyes is a cunt. No on number 31. She's just complicit. No on number 31. Then we get to the sealed bid proposals. No, we don't want sealed bid proposals. United States Attorney Nicholas Hanna wants it out in the open. Reveal, what are you hiding? More DWP corruption on 33. Then, why did the FBI raid DWP? Because of things like item 33. Sneaky. And who's the head of that committee? Nuri. That's right. And then we have the Energy, Climate Change, and Environmental Justice Committee on 34. That's right. More corruption at the DWP. Just sell it. Sell it. Get the $5.4 billion for it. Put it in the general fund and happy time. 36. Again, written by who? Oh, the so-called drunk. Gil Cedillo wants to do what on 36? Racial equality. See, you're bagging on the wrong guy. And then there's Harris Dawson on number 36. Yes, now, on 36, we need an amendment. No more pulling guns on city council members when they try to tell the truth. Please stop sending LAPD on these poor guys.
Please move on to your general public comment.
Oh, yes, my general public comment. I went to court yesterday. I attended Jose Huizar's arraignment. I showed my community support. And General Jeff Page was there. Where the fuck were the rest of you? Where were the rest of you? There was nothing better than Jose Huizar. Jose Huizar found a way to get all of those projects done in only 5 years. Now, where are the rest of you? He was doing what he's supposed to do, build more shit. You gotta build more shit. And you can't build shit unless you get shit done. And that's the goddamn way Jose Huizar did it. Now, just because of this little boo-boo, just because we got some Mick Hanna there, don't let that stop you. Keep building more shit.
Thank you, Thank you, Speaker.
Please state your name and the item you'd like to speak on. Please state your name and the item you'd like to speak on.
Good morning, Council President and Council members. My name is Diana Coronado with the Building Industry Association. I would like to address item number 45 during the special session and would like to reserve my time to voice our opposition against the
So we actually have to take public comment on item 45 when we go into the special meeting. If you want to speak in general public comment now, you're free to do that.
I will reserve my time for the special meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Please state your name and the item you'd like to speak on.
Hi, is this me?
Yes, please state your name and the item you'd like to speak on.
My name is Daniela, and I'd like to speak on item number 9 and general public comment.
Okay, you have 1 minute for each. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I find it incredibly insulting that you would even consider taking money from the LA Justice Fund for movies in the park. The LA Justice Fund is a critical protection for people who are caught in the cruelty of our immigration system. And, it's really interesting that many of you council members are always so quick to condemn Trump's words and actions, but your policy actions are quietly in agreement with his stances by being inherently anti-black and brown and anti-working class. For everyone listening, this council has still not canceled rent or enacted a blanket eviction moratorium, and we're about to see a mass eviction crisis like no other in a time that has seen 14% homeless increase in the city of Los Angeles and a 12% increase in LA County. However, you can change that right now. The people have spoken, and we all have a better idea. This isn't rocket science. Not only can you get money for movies in the park, but you can also continue funding the LA Justice Fund, among other services, by defunding the police and adopting the people's budget. BLMLA literally did your jobs for you in creating this. Strike the LA Justice Fund from item number 9, invest in care, not cops, Black Lives Matter, no more police. Paul Koretz, you're a real-life Harry Potter villain upholding white supremacy. John Lee, you suck and you need to resign before the FBI comes to your door. Thanks.
Thank you, Speaker.
Please state your name and the item you'd like to speak on.
Hi, this is Katie Schaefer calling in from Bonhams District.
What item would you like to speak on?
Oh, sorry, calling in for general public comment.
You have 1 minute.
Thank you. So I just want to again lift up the leadership and grace of BLM over the last 6 years, making these calls for much needed and long overdue change. And also, Sadia, what on earth were you saying this morning? Just pick a side, dude, so we can either roast you or partner with you. Just pick a side. I'm not sure if you guys are watching what's happening around this nation or what happened in New York's primary last night, but there is an overwhelming rejection of the way things have been done in this country and an absolute demand around this entire nation to create meaningful change that puts communities first. BLMLA has made it so politically safe for you guys to finally do the right thing by defunding and disarming the LAPD. Adopt a People's Budget LA. Just do it. The LAPD needs to be gutted from its core, and that's it. I yield my time.
Thank you, Speaker.
Please state your name and the item you'd like to speak on.
Good morning. Am I on, please?
Yes. What item would you like to
Yes.
speak on?
Oh, thank you. All my comments are centered around the corrupt criminal enterprise known as the Los Angeles City Council
So it
of
sounds like
self-serving looters.
So it
Item
sounds-
number 1 through 5, 31 through 38. Item number 1, again.
Hold on for just a second. You have 3 minutes for all your items and 1 minute for your general public comment. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning. Item number 1, these building and safety liens at a time of pandemic like this. These properties should be very, very closely scrutinized as far as what you are doing, placing liens on people's personal properties. Yes, properties that are in grave need of abatement, yes, but these should be cut down. I know personally people having liens placed on them, and in a time of pandemic, we don't need more burden for the people. Besides, people like Marquise Dawson can use this as just another vehicle to steal from the people. Any appointment, number 6 and 7, by the mayor should be disallowed at this point. This man this pencil head has absolutely no credibility with the people anymore. These appointments should be taken away and given by a special authority of some sort. Fire station number 10, item number 10, CD6, giving money to fire stations where sleazy Marquise Dawson, again, evicting people out of the black community with evictions and lawsuits. The Afiba Center been there 20 years. This guy is doing nothing but trying to gentrify the community with the Destination Crenshaw project, which we will not tolerate. Item 23, cannabis, and 27 and 29, all these are just disgusting. There's supposed to be a social equity in this cannabis distribution where none of the black, I think there's 1% black people got these cannabis licenses. You're a disgrace, Dawson. You need to step down. We have plenty in store for you, boy. You're a disgrace. The black community needs representation, and we have none. With Wesson, Dawson, these people do not represent us. Appointment by the mayor, again, item number 31, should not be allowed. The Board of Water and Power should be returned to the people. It is a money-draining pit. It's supposed to be non-profit, but they use money out of and take the money and put it back into the general fund. Everybody knows that. You want to go back to the property tax? Any kind of property tax I would be against. For homelessness, after you corrupt looters of the city council stole all the $1.2 billion in HHH funds.
Thanks. Please move on to your general public comment.
Yeah, I'll do that, Mr. Thought Police. My general public comment is, Nuri Martinez, you are a disgrace. You like to always tear up and talk about you're a daughter of a seamstress. My mother worked 40 years as a seamstress. I'm the son of a seamstress, downtown LA. You're a disgrace to your mother, my mother, and every working person because you're bent over to Wesson and corrupt Herb Wesson, corrupt Garcetti, down to their butt cracks. We want change in this city, Martinez. And by the way, you have never apologized to Miss Autry. Dawson, Wesson on the ad hoc committee of police reform is a joke. These people, where have they been all this time? And all of a sudden, they're for police reform. It's a joke. These people do not.
Please state your name and the item you'd like to speak on.
Hello, my name is Stephen Locke. Council District 1. I'd like to speak
Speaker, we're
on
having
item.
Speaker, we're having a hard time
Hello?
hearing you. Can you turn off
Oh,
your
can you hear me
device
now?
if you're listening into the council meeting? We can't hear you.
Okay, hold on a second.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Stephen Locke, Council District 1. I'd like to speak on items from the Police Oversight Commission. I'd like to speak on items 1 and 8 and general public comment.
Okay, you have 1 minute for each. Go ahead.
Okay, with regards to item 1, I think it's okay. All right, whatever. Fine. With regards to item 8, police cannot oversee themselves. That's ridiculous. You all should just ridiculous. I can't believe you adopted that. You know, you should be listening to BLM LA and People's Budget LA and adopt the plan that they gave you. It's laid out there. It's very clear. It's very simple. You know, maybe what the city needs is more participatory budgeting. I would also like to speak in favor of the vacancy tax. And then my general comment is, you know, Paul Koretz, you do all these white supremacist actions. So, you know, cry your tears about your black friends. You know, Gil Cedillo, get more clear about where you're at. You know, you represent me, so please be more clear about what you represent. You know, Wesson and Mark Stuffin, okay, thanks for saying the things you're saying. We need to hear more of that on City Council with regards to police defunding and abolition. And yes, generally just defund the police, abolish the police, listen to BLM LA and People's Budget LA. And, you know, it's just ridiculous that you're going to play pretend shell games with us that you don't even want to touch them. Are you afraid of being assassinated or something? Like, what is the fear here? Or is it just that, you know, the political economy of the city is such that the way your lives work is that you need to make sure that real estate developers and all these bids make their money. And the way that happens is the police harass us and the homeless and kill us so that they can make sure that their property is appreciated. Is that what's going on here? Yeah, so, you know, I'd like to see more, responses, nonviolent responses that don't involve LAPD, that we take the money from LAPD to fund these new public safety measures.
Thank you, Speaker.
911 while we establish a new
Please state your name and the item you'd like to speak on.
My name is Savannah Gardner. I'm speaking on 5, 6, 9, and general comment.
Okay, you have 3 minutes for all your items and 1 minute for general public comment. Go ahead.
All right, thank you. Just on all of the 5, 6, and all the Cannabis Regulation Commission regards if all of the mayor's appointments should be going to Black folks that have been directly affected by the criminalization of cannabis before legalization, and if they're not, y'all should not approve or confirm those appointments. Secondly, on item 9, I know there's an amendment to it, but for the Justice Fund to go to movies in the park, y'all should know better. You should know that people are not going to let you do the accessory that you have been doing, especially during COVID, especially during the civil unrest, and after y'all failed to support folks who've been disproportionately affected by not enacting a rent freeze. Like, it's just atrocious. But the only money that should be going to movie in the parks is from the LAPD budget. So we are calling on you, this is my general comment, calling on you to be brave and listen to us and defund the police and invest in our communities, otherwise look for another job. I'm asking to adopt a people's budget to listen to Black Lives Matter LA and also support a vacancy tax. I yield my time.
Thank you, Speaker.
Please state your name and the item you'd like to speak on.
Hello, my name is Ryan Hatch. I'd actually like to speak on items 1 and 8 from the ad hoc police reform meeting this morning and then make general public comment. Hello?
I believe that's not on the agenda, so if you want to speak on general public comment, that's fine.
Okay, well, I'll just speak. I'll just make a general public comment then. I was in the queue to speak in this morning's meeting, and I was hoping to speak to some of the specifics laid out in items 1 and 8, but I'll just fold those into a general public comment. I'm glad to see the City Council seeming to move forward and seeming to make what might be some meaningful gestures towards structural change. But I have to insist that the Los Angeles Police Department has to absolutely be excluded, rigidly excluded, from any new actions moving forward toward reimagining public safety. So that is my first concern. The LAPD can in no way participate in the reimagining of public safety, because we know, we have seen history, and what that is going to do is the LAPD is going to co-opt and neutralize our demands. So I'm deeply concerned about some of the language in that first item from
Thank
this
you,
morning.
caller.
Please state your name and the item you'd like to speak on.
Hi. Hello?
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 Yes, we can hear you. What items do you want to speak on?
I wanted to speak on 2, 3, 4, 5, and general comments.
Okay, you have 3 minutes for all your items and 1 minute for general public comment. Go ahead.
Okay. My name is Bobby Pepe. I'm a CD13 homeowner in Mitchell Farrell's district. And I'd like to comment about the bids that you're planning on funding or whatever. To me, bids are white supremacist organizations. Bids are alternate slaver patrols to the LAPD. They're funded by us, City of LA taxpayers. Bids core activity is a racist oppression of the poor, mostly black and brown people experiencing homelessness. We have a homeless population that has been unhoused basically by this council's 20 years of corrupted land development and the mayor's corrupted 2028 Olympic planning. Bids are a pipeline for kickbacks to this council's political campaigns from landowners. This council, also on my general comments, this council has no plan for the greatest humanitarian crisis in the Western world that is about to start on July 31st, 2020, when the eviction freeze ends. On that day, your landlord benefactors will begin unlawful detainer evictions against hundreds of thousands of LA's poorest residents. Adopt the People's Budget LA and defund the police. Thank you.
Please state your name and the item you'd like to speak on.
Hi, my name is Lindsay, and I'd like to make a general public comment.
You have 1 minute. Go ahead.
Thank you. First of all, hey, David, good to see you. I'm in your district. And you say you don't approve of the mayor's budget, which is great and all, but the LAPD PAC spent over $44,000 on the 2020 re-election campaign, so just I'd love to know what's going on with that. Anyway, I just came from the police reform meeting, like so many of us on this call, and while it was the first of many, many steps, clearly the LAPD is still going to be involved with these nonviolent calls. And what we need is the police to be defunded. We need them to be replaced with counselors, mental health experts, and youth workers who are hired specifically for this reason and paid accordingly so that they can be available 24 hours a day. We need dispatch centers to know how to redirect nonviolent 911 calls. And these are not new ideas or new demands. Listen to Black Lives Matter. Listen to the people calling in. Are you taking us seriously or just humoring us? Adopt the people's budget. Care not cops. I yield my time. Fuck you.
Please state your name and the item you'd like to speak on. Please state your name and the item you'd like to speak on.
Zachary Warma, items 9 and 45.
So 45 is in the special meeting. We'll take comment on that then. If you want to speak in general public comment about something now, you may.
Okay, I'll wait for the special for item 45. For item 9, good morning, Council President, Council members. My name is Zachary Warma, and I'm the Public Affairs Specialist with Downtown Women's Center. Just wanted to say DWC strongly encourages the Council to support Councilmember Harris Dawson's amending motion to item 9 and ensure that the Los Angeles Justice Fund remains fully funded. As the current administration looks for every avenue to tighten immigration and break up families, it's essential that immigrants have legal resources available to them. Keeping the Justice Fund's budget fully intact is a clear way for the city to demonstrate its commitment to our undocumented neighbors and friends. As immigrants have been shut out of receiving federal benefits, and due to the economic shutdown, many sit on the verge of homelessness, the city should not be increasing barriers to much-needed legal representation. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker.
Please state your name and the item you'd like to speak on. Please state your name and the item you'd like to speak on. Please state your name and the item you'd like to speak on.
Hi, my name is Rob Kwan. I'd like to speak on items 2, 31, 36, and general public comment.
You have 3 minutes for all your items and 1 minute for general public comment. Go ahead.
Really quickly on item 2, it relates to the West Adams bid, and I just think it's really absurd that our default policy is that for city-owned property within the bid, automatically voting towards acceptance of the bid. It just kind of rigs the system in an unfair way that predisposes us towards bids. Item 31 relates to the reappointment of Susanna Reyes, and I just wanted to note that she's donated to 6 of our current council members, and this is a lot like the development that was up for a vote yesterday, where over $50,000 from the development team had been contributed to our city officials. Item 36 relates to the racial equity in the city, and I think it's important that we make sure we look at exempt positions in the city as well. Let's get a report on the racial breakdowns of each individual council office and their staffs so we can put everything into perspective. It's also worth noting that with women in politics, women are paid 83 cents for every dollar men are paid in this city, in city government, that is. And it gets as bad as 66 cents on the dollar for LA Fire Department. 44% of women in LA are Latina, yet only 18% of our female department heads are. White women make up 31% of women in LA, yet they represent 43% of female department heads. So let's look within. Let's look at the progress we've made since that report came out about 4 or 5 years ago. For my general public comment, I think we have to cure and correct. I'm going to be filing a cure and correct for the Rule 23 motion related to Jose Huizar yesterday. I dialed in and got a recording that the meeting had not yet started. Public comment has been systemically and consistently undermined by this council. My advice to you all, if you hate the public so much, maybe you should get the fuck out of public service. You're in the wrong job. Herb Wesson, with regard to Mr. Huizar, let's remember that he said, Mr. Huizar is, quote, like my brother, my best friend on the council. I trust him with my life. He does the same for me. Now he says that he doesn't know that Jose was bad. But let's keep in mind, you all shielded him. You excused the previous 2 FBI investigations, the DUI, and the massage therapist he groped in Pasadena. You built this culture of corruption, so don't scapegoat Jose Huizar. And then with the LA Justice Fund, that item hasn't been heard by the Budget and Finance Committee for a year. Report's been sitting in your committee for almost 4 months. There are a lot of organizations that could be doing other things to help on the front lines with our immigrant communities, and they shouldn't be getting dicked around by this council. So why don't you get your stuff together there? Thank you. Yield my time. Fuck you.
Thank you very much.
Please state your name and the item you'd like to speak on.
My name's Gabriella Goldberg. I want to give general public comment.
Okay, you have 1 minute. Go ahead.
I first want to support putting the vacancy tax on the ballot. To be honest, I feel like this is the bare minimum effort to fund affordable housing. I was born and have lived in Los Angeles for 22 years. I've only seen homelessness increase under Democratic, quote, mayors. 12.7% since last year, and thousands more are at risk. I also want to let Paul Koretz and John Lee know we're watching you. Your pushes to, quote, reform. Koretz, we know you took $56,000 from the LAPPL during last year's campaign. I want to be clear, not only has Koretz disregarded the people's budget, but he voted no against the mayor's bare minimum, $150 million decrease. That's less than 5%. This is shameful. I want to say defund the police, support a people's budget. And I also want to say, Koretz, you're clearly not for your community. I've lived around District 5 my entire life. Perhaps just your few wealthy constituents, which will not get you reelected this time because sadly we know who you are now. I also want to shed some light on Koretz's statement that looting is just as concerning as the death of George.
Okay, members, that concludes public comment. Madam Clerk, let's go ahead and vote on some items.
Thank you, Madam President. The following items are available for council to vote on at this time. Those are items 2 through 8, 10 through 20, 22, 24 through 27, 29, 31 through 34, and 36 through 38.
Okay, let's go ahead and take all those together. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Blumenfield.
Blumenfield, aye.
Bonin.
Bonin, aye.
Buscaino.
Buscaino, aye.
Cedillo.
Cedillo, aye.
Harris Dawson.
Yes.
Koretz. Councilmember Koretz. Krikorian.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Martinez.
Aye.
O'Farrell.
Aye.
Price.
Aye.
Rodriguez.
Aye.
Rue.
Aye.
Wesson.
Wesson, aye.
And back to Councilmember Koretz.
Koretz, aye.
14 ayes. These items pass or adopted.
Okay, Madam Clerk, let's move on to the closed session items 39 through 44. Mr. Koretz, Mr. Krikorian, I'm sorry, did you want to speak on these items?
Thank you, Madam President. Although Budget and Finance waived consideration of items 39 through 44, they do appear to be routine settlements of litigation, and unless members have questions or concerns, I would believe that they could be considered an open session. So I can't speak for the committee, but they do appear to be ordinary settlements.
Okay, members, are there any questions before we vote on any of these items? 39 through 44? Okay, seeing none. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Madam President. For item 39, in the case entitled Yolanda Langley versus David Hazan, there is a recommendation to expend up to $650,000 in settlement. For item 40, in the case entitled Kwong H. Kwok versus the City of Los Angeles, there is a recommendation to expend up to $750,000 in settlement. For item 41, in the case entitled Medina Lester versus the City of Los Angeles, there is a recommendation to expend up to $500,000 in settlement. For item 42, in the case entitled Artak Murajan versus the City of Los Angeles, there is a recommendation to expend up to $400,000 in settlement. For item 43, in the case entitled Cheryl Ann Shear versus the City of Los Angeles, there is a recommendation to expend up to $130,000 in settlement. And for item 44, in the case entitled Vasquez versus the Hollywood Beautification Team et al., there is a recommendation for the city to accept $102,375 in settlement. Madam President, would you also like to consider the closed session item number 47 on the continuation agenda at this time?
Yes, thank you, Madam Clerk. Let's go ahead and consider that as well. Item 47.
In that case, entitled Guillermo Carrion versus the City of Los Angeles, there is a recommendation to expend up to $1,275,000 in settlement.
Okay, let's go ahead and open the roll.
And this is for items 39 through 44 and 47. Blumenfield.
Blumenfield, aye.
Bonin.
Bonin, aye.
Buscaino.
Buscaino, aye.
Cedillo.
Cedillo, aye.
Harris Dawson.
Yes.
Koretz.
Aye.
Krikorian.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Martinez.
Aye.
O'Farrell.
Aye.
Price.
Aye.
Rodriguez.
Aye.
Rue.
Yes.
Wesson.
Wesson, aye.
14 ayes. These items are adopted.
Okay, Madam Clerk, let's move on to item 9 and item 35 as amended. Please call the roll.
Blumenfield.
Blumenfield, aye.
Bonin.
Bonin, aye.
Buscaino.
Buscaino, aye.
Cedillo.
Cedillo, aye.
Harris Dawson.
Yes.
Koretz.
Yes.
Krikorian.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Martinez.
Aye.
O'Farrell.
Aye.
Price.
Aye.
Rodriguez.
Aye.
Rue.
Aye. Aye.
Wesson.
Wesson, aye.
14 ayes. These items are adopted as amended.
Okay, Madam Clerk, let's move on to item 21 that was called special by Mr. Price. Mr. Price, item 21.
Yes, Madam President, I submitted a amending motion. I think it's been circulated.
Yeah, it's been circulated. Are you prepared? Do you want to speak on this item? We have to read.
I just got a question.
Okay, hold on for just a second. Here, we have to read your amending motion into the record, Mr. Price. Give us just a second. Go ahead, Madam Clerk.
Amending motion 21A amends the matter, item 21, before council today to instruct the city administrative officer with the assistance of the city attorney, police department, fire department, and cannabis department to report with a comprehensive fee study for cannabis licenses, factoring in the costs of enforcement, and with revised fee numbers in order to attain full cost recovery. This is introduced by Councilmember Price and seconded by Councilmember Wesson.
Okay, Mr. President, do you have any questions?
No, it's fine. We can vote.
Okay, let's go ahead and vote on item 21 as amended. Please call the roll.
Blumenfield.
Blumenfield, aye.
Bonin.
Bonin, aye.
Buscaino.
Buscaino, aye.
Cedillo.
Cedillo, aye.
Harris Dawson.
Yes.
Koretz.
Aye.
Krikorian.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Martinez.
Aye.
O'Farrell.
Aye.
Price.
Aye.
Rodriguez.
Aye.
Rue.
Aye.
Wesson.
Wesson, aye.
14 ayes. This matter is adopted as amended.
Let's move on to item 23. This was called special by Ms. Rodriguez. For questions?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. Is DCR available?
Yes, and they're coming to the table. Give us just a second. Yeah, we have DCR here. Hold on for just a second. Give us just a second. We're letting the rest of the staff into our meeting. Okay, go ahead, Ms. Rodriguez.
Thank you, Madam President. Good morning, Ms. Packer. I had a question. I wanted you to explain the amendments as achieved through this policy, how that impacts the eligible licensing limits in community planning areas based on the current numbers that are available that are provided by the community plans.
Thank you, Councilwoman Rodriguez. I appreciate the question. The amendments that are before Council today for consideration do not change the undue concentration limits within the City of Los Angeles. The City of Los Angeles does limit per community plan area the number of retail, cultivation, and non-volatile manufacturing license types in the city. This particular amendment still maintains those particular undue concentration limits that council has established. However, there is an amendment that would exempt an additional 100 retail licenses from that particular calculation. And so I'd like to try and pose a hypothetical to help explain this. Currently, because of the undue concentration limits, it's based on population, one retail facility per 10,000 residents. If we approximate that the city has about 4.5 million residents within the city of Los Angeles, that means that we would have approximately 450 retail licenses that are available. The undue concentration limit would allow for 450 retail licenses. We have an amendment before you today that would allow for 550 retail licenses to be issued, but the undue concentration limit still stays at 450. So the additional 100 are exempt from the calculation, but the underlying limit does not change. And it's just for the retail license type.
Okay. And so so just for retail, so then I'm just trying to reconcile in my head what that would look like in some of these area planning area.
It would allow for an additional 100 retail licenses distributed throughout the 35 community plan areas in the city.
And do we know proportionally where they, based on applications, where that likely might surface in
Yes,
terms
ma'am.
of
And
where those numbers might?
Yes, ma'am. And we've shared that information with your council office, and we would make it available to all council offices.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions on 23? All right, seeing none, Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll on this item?
Blumenfield.
Blumenfield, aye.
Bonin.
Bonin, aye.
Buscaino.
Buscaino, aye.
Cedillo.
Cedillo, aye.
Harris Dawson.
Yes.
Koretz.
Koretz, aye.
Krikorian. Mr. Krikorian.
Aye.
Thank you. Lee.
Aye.
Martinez.
Aye.
O'Farrell.
Aye.
Price.
Aye.
Rodriguez.
Aye.
Rue.
Aye.
Wesson.
Wesson, aye.
14 ayes, this matter passes.
Okay, let's move on to item 28. This was called special by Mr. Price.
Thank you, Madam President. First of all, Kat, thank you for your moving these package of ordinances along. Social equity is something many of us have been concerned about, so I'm happy that we're making some progress. But since the DCR is recommending type 9 licenses, those non-storefront deliveries, to be limited to social equity applicants, will you begin processing applicants for type 9 licenses now, along with the phase 3, round 1? As you know, this will be very helpful to the social equity applicants that were not approved for further processing by offering them new opportunities to enter the market now. Any thoughts along those lines?
Thank you, Councilmember Price. I appreciate the question. And yes, that would be the intention, to make the delivery license type immediately available to the social equity applicants. Part of what we'd like to ask this council is, when adopting this ordinance, to do so with an urgency clause that would allow us to move forward more expeditiously, to allow our applicants to move through the process. But we've heard a lot of feedback from stakeholders. Folks are eager to be able to move forward, and particularly right now, folks are looking for economic opportunity. So we would try and make this license type immediately available to the public. Thank you.
News. I know a lot of folks will be very pleased to learn that, and we look forward to working with you as we move forward. Can you share with us the specific protections that will mitigate against potential predatory practices? Who does the review? The city attorney involved? Kind of how is that process being managed now?
So one of the things that our amendments focused on was expanding the definition of equity share. It's really the definition of equity share that defines how the social equity applicant themselves owns the entity that is applying for the license. So we've done a number of different revisions to the definition of equity share itself. Give me one moment. I will walk through how we have amended, very quickly summarize how we've amended this particular definition. First and foremost, we wanted to make sure that the definition was centered around unconditional ownership. And so we are prohibiting the divestment or relinquishment of any part of ownership under any circumstances, the specific percentage of equity share that the applicant is required to have. We are also expanding the definition of equity share to address profits, dividends, and distributions or other payments more appropriately. We're expanding the definition to address voting rights, and we're also providing additional protections in the event of his or her death. Now, the reality, Councilmember Price, is that the department does have limited resources in order to monitor some of the private interactions that happens with social equity applicants, and that's why we were intentional in creating tools for social equity applicants themselves to be able to move forward. And so part of what we've done is that we have created the authority and power for the social equity applicant to audit their records, to initiate legal action if there is any breach of compliance. And I think one of the most important tools that we've added with this particular recommendation is that we are requiring all social equity applicants to add an addendum to all of their operating agreements that clarifies that if any provision of the operating agreement is in violation of the social equity program, that particular license could be considered null and void. So we worked very closely with stakeholders, we worked very closely with other regulators and other jurisdictions. I think that if this is adopted, we're going to walk away with the strongest protections. I think that we'll be back in front of this council with additional recommendations as we go through that experience, but I appreciate the council's support on these recommendations today.
Well, we appreciate the stronger nature of these tools, so we look forward to working with you as well. Two more questions. Many businesses, as you know, have expressed interest in wanting to move locations. What will be the process for accepting application requests to ensure fairness, especially when there are multiple businesses wanting to move within the same community plan area?
So I appreciate that question, Councilmember Price. This is something that we got a lot of feedback from stakeholders about. We support businesses and their ability to move. However, we understand that this council needs to balance a number of different considerations when they're allowing businesses to move. Part of what we've done is to try and put together a proposal that balances those considerations, and it really centers around what activity type the business or applicant is seeking to move. So there are certain activity types that aren't subject to findings of undue concentration. For example, delivery, distribution, testing, the non-volatile manufacturing. Because there aren't any limits in particular community plan areas, our proposal would allow businesses to move throughout the city without limitation as to which community plan area they are located. However, for the activity types that are subject to undue concentration, retail, cultivation, volatile manufacturing, we've created a rule where businesses can move anywhere within their particular community plan area, but if they want to move into a new community plan area, and specifically one that has reached undue concentration, they will have to go through the PCN process. So what we've done with this proposal, right now there's an outright prohibition on businesses' ability to move. What we've done with our proposal is to create two options for businesses. They can move within their community plan area and be subject to the same zoning and sensitive use restrictions, and they can do that all day, every day. Or if they want to move into another community plan area, they will go through the PCN process as it's been established.
Okay, well, at least there are some options, and I think that flexibility will be helpful.
I agree. Thank you.
A similar question. What about businesses that want to expand? You know, they're in a small location and business is good. They want to expand to a larger location. Is there a process, a specific process for that to occur?
Yes, again, I appreciate the question. One of the things that our proposed amendments tackled were application modifications. In addition to the modification of relocating a business, we've also addressed business expansion. We have created a limit and said that if a business wants to modify their existing application, they are only able to expand either 500 square feet or 20%, whichever I believe is greater. And part of the reason why however, I want to pause. If they want to expand beyond that limitation that we've established, they simply need to submit a new application to do so. And part of the reason why we've made that distinction is because when the department is reviewing some of the initial information, we're doing so based on the actual square footage that's in that application. So we're measuring for sensitive uses, for example. And so if a business expands 500 feet in a particular direction, they might be expanding 500 feet within a school or 500 feet within another sensitive use. And so we have to redo this calculation depending on the expansion type. So we've created a ceiling in which if people are expanding within that ceiling, it's going to be considered an application modification, and if people want to expand beyond that ceiling, they have a vehicle to do so, but it's through the submitting of a new application.
Okay, well, again, thank you for the responses. We look forward to these changes, creating a more robust social equity program, one that will generate the kind of support and results that we all hope it will. Thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing no other questions on this item, let's go ahead and vote on item 28. Go ahead and call the roll.
Blumenfield.
Blumenfield, aye.
Bonin.
Bonin, aye.
Buscaino.
Aye.
Cedillo.
Cedillo, aye.
Harris Dawson.
Yes.
Koretz.
Aye.
Krikorian. Excuse me, Councilmember Krikorian?
Aye.
Thank you. Lee.
Aye.
Martinez.
Aye.
O'Farrell.
Aye.
Price.
Aye.
Rodriguez.
Aye.
Rue.
Aye.
Wesson.
Wesson, aye.
14 ayes, this matter is adopted.
Okay, let's move on to item number 30. Mr. Krikorian?
Thank you very much, Madam President and members. This is another important step forward in the city's effort to continue to expand business opportunities for its local small businesses, its local minority-owned businesses by focusing our procurement efforts more directly on businesses here in Los Angeles. For far too long, billions of dollars of procurement has gone to businesses in places like South Carolina instead of South Los Angeles because it's cheaper to do business in places outside of Los Angeles. And so this council enacted the local business preference back in 2011. Even before that, we had the small local business preference. But these programs haven't been utilized as robustly as we would hope. So what's before you today is a consolidation and improvement of those programs that will expand outreach, increase the preference amounts, increase eligibility, increase awareness about the programs so that we can bring more of our procurement dollars into local businesses, creating jobs and economic opportunity for people here in Los Angeles. This is an important step forward that builds on the steps that we took just a couple of weeks ago when we approved the Compete for LA program, the regional procurement platform that will seize the opportunities that are available from large events like the Olympics and Measure M investments, Super Bowls that are coming to Los Angeles, all these large events that usually procure only with large national and international companies. Compete for LA gives local businesses more of an opportunity to compete effectively for some of that work as well. So that's what's before you today. I'm really excited about this step forward. I want to thank Mr. Buscaino for all of his work in this direction as well and in bringing us to this point. And I also want to make special mention of Councilmember Price and the work that he's done, not only in the Economic Development Committee as chair and in our ad hoc committee, but also for years on this issue, way back to his time as the state Senate's chair on procurement. So this has been an issue that we've all been working on, and this is an important moment for us to step forward to bring more money into the businesses of Los Angeles. Shout out also to our department heads, EWDD, ConAd, and the city attorney for all working collaboratively in bringing this to you. So I ask for your aye vote.
Mr. Buscaino?
Thank you, Madam President, members, and thanks to you, Council Member Krikorian. Thanks for shepherding these final recommendations before us through your ad hoc's job committee, which you chair, and thanks for ensuring that what we have before us is airtight. Colleagues, this proposal before us has been a long time coming. In March 2018, I drafted a motion requesting departments to reform the Transitional Jobs Opportunity Program and the First Source Hiring Ordinance. And both of these programs have the potential to be life-changing tools, but historically have only been used a handful of times in our city's contract bidding process. I champion this motion because something that is very important to me is making sure that everyone has a fair shot at getting a job in our city. Steady employment has been shown to be the driving factor in preventing someone from falling into homelessness or returning to jail. And the city can and should play a critical role in facilitating these jobs. And as the city looks to uplift communities that have been faced with historic disinvestment, it's more important than ever that our city does everything possible to promote the hiring of those who face barriers to employment. The final product before us today, I feel, and you heard from Chairman Krikorian, is a strong proposal that will incentivize contractors who do business with the city to hire transitional workers. The recommendations you see here are a result of collaboration, years of hard work, as Mr. Krikorian alluded to. Along the way, we've made strategic decision to combine the TJOP with the Small Local Business Preference Program and the Local Business Preference Program to make the overall program more robust. We drew from other municipalities in the county and the state for inspiration. We turned to the county's social enterprise program as a model. We also worked in close partnership with Bureau of Contract Administration, EWDD, the Board of Public Works, City Attorney's Office, and other council offices. So I want to thank all of you for moving on this. It's, again, a way forward, and I ask for your aye vote moving forward. Thank you so much, Madam President.
Any other questions, Mr. Buscaino? Or I should say comments?
Thank you. I ask for your aye vote. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Let's go ahead and prepare to vote on this item number 30. Please call the roll.
Blumenfield.
Blumenfield, aye.
Bonin.
Bonin, aye.
Buscaino.
Yes.
Cedillo.
Aye.
Harris Dawson.
Yes.
Koretz.
No, upstairs.
Councilmember Koretz.
Aye.
Krikorian.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Martinez.
Aye.
O'Farrell.
Aye.
Price.
Aye.
Rodriguez.
Aye.
Rue.
Aye.
Wesson.
Wesson, aye.
14 ayes. This matter is adopted.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. Let's go ahead and let's recess the regular meeting and begin our special meeting. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Blumenfield.
Blumenfield, present.
Bonin.
Bonin, present.
Buscaino.
Here.
Cedillo.
Here.
Harris Dawson.
Here.
Koretz.
Here.
Krikorian.
Here.
Lee.
Present.
Martinez.
Present.
O'Farrell.
Present.
Price. Councilmember Price. Rodriguez.
Here.
Rue.
Present.
Wesson.
David, I emailed Alex saying if they can vote late.
Wes,
Thank you. 13 members present and a quorum, Madam President.
That would be great.
Madam President, would council like all items on the special agenda to go forthwith?
Without objection, that will be the order next.
Items 45 and 46 are items for which a public hearing has not been held. 10 votes are required for consideration.
Without objection, those items are now before us next.
Madam President, there has been a request to refer item 46 to the Planning and Land Use Management Committee.
Without objection, that will be the order next. Members, we're going to go ahead and take up item 45. If any of you wish to introduce amending motions, you can do so at this time. Mr. Bonin?
Yes, Madam President, as I indicated when I incorrectly called this special at the beginning of the regular meeting, I have some questions for staff, after which I will propose some direction. So as I said, it'll depend on the answers we get from staff.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and open our public comment for this item. Madam Clerk, can you please read the call-in information for those who wish to speak on this item?
I believe the city attorney
All right,
would like
hold
to
on
make
for
a
just
statement.
a second. I'm clarifying it with the city attorney. So we're going to go ahead and hear from staff first before we open it to public comment.
Thank
just
you.
in case an amending motion gets introduced. So why don't we have staff come in? Go ahead and take a seat at the table, and we're going to let a few other folks into our Zoom meeting as well. So give us a couple of minutes to do that. Mr. Llewellyn, do you want to take a seat?
Hollywood. They said this meets
Maybe
government
at the
speech
end
to
of the table, yeah. Good morning. We're still waiting to let other folks into our meeting, so give us just a minute. Okay, members, it appears like we have everyone here.
Who's gonna speak first?
Sorry about that, members. We're trying to social distance. Think we're comfortable there?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Bonner, did you want to go ahead and kick us off?
Yeah, thank you very much, Madam President. And let me start by thanking you for scheduling this today, and let me also start by thanking the members of the council for agreeing last week to move this forward and try to keep this proposal alive. And I want to thank staff that really scrambled over the past week to try to get work done, including the city attorney's office, the CLA, and the CAO. It is my belief that we strongly need a vacancy tax in the city of Los Angeles, that it is a very important tool to help us deal with our affordable housing crisis, our homelessness crisis, and frankly, our fiscal crisis. I thought so back when I proposed this last year. I thought so last week, and I continue to think so today. But I cannot pretend that the proposal that is currently before us would achieve any of the objectives that I had set out when I initially proposed this. Because of a number of different factors, some of the amendments that we put in last week, and some of the really big differences between the city of Los Angeles and the city of Oakland, this measure before us as written would be very problematic and not help us solve any of those problems. There are things that make sense in the city of Oakland, a city of that size, that don't make sense in the city of Los Angeles. What is a relatively harmless loophole in Oakland actually effectively totally guts the purpose and the intent of a vacancy tax here. In Oakland, for instance, if you have a 40 or 50 unit building and 40 of those units are vacant and only one of them is occupied, none of them are counted as vacant. That's a big hole. As a result, because of those differences between Oakland and Los Angeles and some of the amendments we put in to get agreement to move forward last week, the fiscal value of this to the city of Los Angeles may be as low as $4 million, which is pretty damn small from a place where we started thinking that we could potentially get $100 million. There's a number of other issues in here. Some of the exemptions we might want in Los Angeles might need to be a little more tightly tailored. And some of the terms of expenditures and the oversight provisions would need to be different here in Los Angeles. Those are not impossible things to do. I certainly think those are things that this body has the will and the capacity to do. And if we were to do them, I think we would have a sound proposal that works for Los Angeles. And what I wonder, being realistic, is whether or not we are capable of making those decisions today. And if city attorney were able to make those changes, some of which are minor wordsmithing and some of which are fairly significant, if city attorney were able to do it, and one, let me ask city attorney if they could. My second question is to the CAO's office, because I understand that in order to move something to the ballot, we need to have a revenue estimate attached to it. And the revenue estimate of what I would want would be significantly greater than what we have now. And I'm curious how long it would take to to get that revenue estimate done.
Members of the council and council president, Rich Llewellyn from the CAO's office. Council member, we agree with you that the ordinance before you, quite frankly, is too small, and we do not recommend you proceed with that ordinance. It's too non-ambitious. The difficulty, as you point out, is you will have to actually pass a number next week by law of what your ballot measure should produce. Then some weeks later, we produce the fiscal impact statement. Traditionally, and they should be the same, so you're sending a message to a voter they are the same. You certainly don't want to change it, because that looks like you didn't exactly know what you were doing when you put it on the ballot the first time. We do not believe we can have a realistic estimate of a new proposal, we don't even know what it's going to be, by next week that will be a good faith and certain proposal, certain number that then we can carry to a following sort of fiscal impact statement and come out in the same place, quite frankly. We think that would be rushed and very difficult. We have to say we would encourage you to consider this as a long-range effort and consider this for a future ballot.
Thanks, Mr. Llewellyn. City Attorney?
Hold on for just a second. He's coming to the table.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead, sir.
Good morning, council members. Charles Hong, Deputy City Attorney. Councilmember Baumann, to your question, I believe you're asking whether the city attorney could craft language to close the loophole that you mentioned that's found in the Oakland measure, where if one unit is occupied, the entire multifamily unit is occupied. We can certainly obviously do that change or that crafting. The only concern is that in terms of the rate of tax, whether the rate of tax will be measured based on the number of units, and whether, according to the CLA report, the proposal was to put a max on that unit. The only concern is in terms of units and so forth. What the issue that we have is sometimes the objective criteria in terms of how to tax a unit. And whether that would be a manner which could be objective or can be applied evenly. Granted, we would have to understand whether if a unit has more, multiple units within a facility, whether based on this threshold of what's taxed, how we would measure that question. There's just certain unknowns that it's difficult to answer until we start really going into the details of how the units will be taxed and the method of taxation.
And to make the changes or to tighten things up for the exemptions or for the eligible expenditures, or to create a community oversight committee, you would need from us today agreement on very specific language?
Well, in terms of the oversight aspects, certain details can be delayed or deferred until a later time. But in terms of if the council chooses to include certain frameworks, that would be required to be put in the ballot measure and in the ordinance itself. In terms of certain procedural mechanisms, those items obviously can be deferred as well. The ballot itself requires the rate, the method of taxation, the tax base, the term of the tax, and the fact that the revenues need to be reported to this council by the chief fiscal officer, which would be the controller. The one question about exemptions is the exemptions serve as a function of the tax base. So the more exemptions you include or exclude, you're either expanding or narrowing the tax base, and that's critical in determining who and what is taxed. And any change.
Well, that's kind of what happened here. Yeah. I mean, when we started this, based on what had been done in other cities and based on other analysis, we thought that there might be a universe of 100,000 units. And based on what had happened in Vancouver, where 15% of the units got pushed back onto the market, that would have been adding 15,000 units to the rental market in Los Angeles, which is certainly nothing to sneeze at. We also thought, based on revenue projections from Oakland, using a similar formula, that this may also generate $100 million that could be used for affordable housing or renters assistance. But based on what we have in front of us, the impact on inventory, frankly, is pretty small based on the included exemptions, and the revenue really ain't much to speak of at all. I really, really want to be able to move forward with a vacancy tax, but I can't, in good conscience, ask us to put this before the voters as written. And it does not sound that we will be able to get a credible and solid revenue forecast as required by law to include. So, colleagues, with a lot of reluctance, but with continued determination, I would propose that we move the CLA, HCID, CAO, and city attorney be directed to report back with further research and information on a proposed vacancy tax for consideration for a 2022 ballot measure. The report should include information on the number and type of vacant units in Los Angeles, broken down by type: commercial, single-family home, residential, apartment units, and condo units. The report should consider applicability to commercial as well as residential properties, consider criteria for potential exemptions, including for open space or hardship, and should make recommendations for eligible expenditures of funds in an oversight structure. I further move that the CLA, HCID, and CAO report back with recommendations on the feasibility of enacting additional measures to combat speculative housing, including a land value uplift tax, a flipping tax, an out-of-state transaction tax, and penalties for illegal demolition of residential buildings.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Krikorian. Any other questions, Mr. Bonin?
No, thank you, Madam President.
All right, Mr. Koretz?
Thank you, Madam President. With some trepidation, I would actually argue in the other direction. I believe that the greatest likelihood of this passing is an electorate that we will never see again, that will turn out in November. I think the electorate that will turn out in 2022 will be considerably less motivated, probably not as progressive as all the people turning out to defeat Donald Trump. I'm not expressing an opinion on that, but for better or worse, that will be a very high turnout of progressive and often more tax willing electorate. I think we could minimize the changes and make it only the one that would include the number of units where one or two in a large building might be rented and the rest kept as a commodity. I think that is probably our highest value target in all this. But I'm not 100% convinced yet that if we made that one change and accepted that there might be some minor tweaking that we'll miss, that if we asked the CAO to move heaven and earth and work around the clock for a week, that we might not be able to come up with a much more accurate estimate and that we could move forward. I believe this will pass, even if not perfect, and the perfect in 2 years will have less of a chance of passing. So I would prefer that we give it that one chance. And if we find in a week that we didn't get there, we can make that motion at that time. But that would be my recommendation.
Okay. Mr. Ryu?
Thank you, Madam President. And, I just wanted to also chime in because I really wish we had more time for a much deeper discussion on this issue. And more time to actually vet this through to get it on the ballot this November. You know, I agree with Councilmember Bonin, and I really want to thank Councilmember Bonin for leading on this issue and for working through this incredibly complex legislative process. But like him, I do want to voice my strong support for the vacancy tax that will bring more housing to the market and begin to address this commodification of housing. But I want to be clear that this is more than a tax. It is about who housing is for in Los Angeles. Because if you look outside at the housing that gets built here in Los Angeles, it certainly doesn't seem like it's built for Angelenos. And this is definitely not the housing that I grew up in, and it's not the housing that most Angelenos need. As we know, the average income of Los Angeles is $62,400, and the average rent is about $2,500 a month, or basically half of the income, if you're lucky enough to be a median income earner. And this is primarily because of an affordable housing shortage. And this is where we need to recognize that we do need to build more, and we do need to build more, and we do need to build it faster when it comes to affordable housing. Because according to our planning department, 91% of 80,000 units built in Los Angeles between 2014 and 2019 were actually built for the luxury market. We have overbuilt for luxury housing, severely underbuilt for low-income housing, and the smallest share of new housing built, less than 0.5%, is for the middle class. So clearly, we are not building the right housing for our city's people. We are always trying to address the supply issue, and this is why I put legislation forth to build more moderate income housing, reforming the Ellis Act, and changing local incentive programs. Because the assumption that housing is built for people to live in, when increasingly it's actually built for places for investors to park their money. And this goes to Councilmember Krikorian's question before. You know, according to a UN report published in 2017, real estate has become a commodity of choice for corporate finance. And the demand at the top is pulling the price of housing and the cost of land upwards. In 1 year, literally just 1 year, from mid-2013 to 2014, corporate buying of real estate properties in the top 100 cities worldwide rose from $600 billion to $1 trillion. And the UN's own special housing envoy wrote that this influx of capital has increased housing prices in many cities to levels that most residents cannot afford, and in some cities by more than 50% in a 5-year period. Housing prices are no longer commensurate with the household income levels and instead are driven for housing assets among global investors. So this report cites a vacancy tax as one of the remedies to this issue. And here in Los Angeles, our own housing department has found that those luxury units, which are in buildings, which we're building so much of, are twice as more likely to be vacant as a moderate or low income unit. So this problem lives here and exists here in Los Angeles. And I acknowledge, and I do want to acknowledge that this vacancy tax alone will not solve the problem, but it is a major piece of the puzzle, and it will apply pressure to this global system which treats housing as a financial commodity and not a human right. It will also allow our city to raise revenues that can be put into the affordable and moderate income housing. And it will also begin a conversation about housing that serves the human need and not an investment portfolio. And that's a conversation worth having here with the people of Los Angeles, and it comes in a form of a ballot initiative. But it is unfortunate that, you know, we don't want to pander we don't want to waste this opportunity and by getting on the ballot because, you know, this pandemic has put our council in an unprecedented challenge, and our council and our city has done a remarkable job responding to the most urgent needs. But we do need to discuss this item, vet out all the differences, make it solid so that when we do put it in front of voters at the next possible chance, that it will pass because this is needed. So thank you, Madam President, and thank you, colleagues.
Thank you, Mr. Rue. Members, I'm going to go ahead and open the public comment at this time. Any other amendments, members, before we open it for public comment? Okay, seeing none. Madam Clerk, can you read the call-in information?
Yes, Madam President. As indicated on the agenda, members of the public wishing to offer public comment should call 669-254-5252 and use meeting ID number 160-535-8466 and press pound. Press pound again when prompted for participant ID. Once admitted into the meeting, press star 9 to request to speak. Again, call 669-254-5252 and use meeting ID number 160-535-8466 and press pound. Press pound again when prompted for participant ID. Once admitted into the meeting, press star 9 to request to speak.
Mr. City Attorney, can you please remind our public of our speaking rules?
Yes. So, Madam President, we're taking public comment on item 45 only on the special agenda. So speakers have up to 1 minute to speak. You must be on the item. We're not talking about any other items or taking general public comment. It's just on this item. And if the speakers are off topic, we'll give them one brief warning and then we'll cut them off. So I believe we're ready to take the first speaker.
Please state your name and the item you'd like to speak on.
Zachary Warma, Downtown Women's Center, in support of item 45.
Please go ahead.
You have 1 minute. Go ahead.
Thank you, Council President. Again, Council members, Council President, good afternoon. Zachary Warma, Public Affairs Specialist with Downtown Women's Center. And on behalf of DWC, I urge your support in placing the vacancy tax on the ballot for this November. Even before the economic devastation wrought by COVID-19, funding for homeless services has never fully accounted for the needs of unhoused Angelenos. While the recently released results of the 2020 homeless count showed a 14% increase in homelessness in the city and a 16% increase in women's homelessness countywide, these figures are not inclusive of the current and more dire reality brought on by the pandemic. It's now doubly essential that the city acts decisively in pursuing new sources of revenue to fund desperately needed homeless services. By placing the vacancy tax on the ballot for this November, this council would be taking up a cause long championed by the Skid Row provider community, and its successful passage would help the city fund the services, housing development, and long-term solutions necessary to ending homelessness in Los Angeles. Please vote in favor of the motion before you. Thank you so much.
Please state your name and the item you'd like to speak on.
Good morning, fat cunt. All items, please.
You have 1 minute to speak on item 45 only.
What about the other item?
You have 1 minute to speak on item 45 only. Do you want to speak on item 45?
Yes, Princess, I would like that.
Begin.
Yes, thank you, darling. So, of course, we should spend the money in a special election that will never pass. According to Gil Cedillo, a.k.a. Gil Cedillo, he told me it takes 2/3 to pass it, and that it has no chance of passing. So I support putting it on the ballot because I think we should waste as much money as possible. After all, we're all going to get COVID-19, and most of us are not going to be here at the end of 2020, so let's just waste the money, hold the vote,
Thank you,
and
Speaker.
it will fail.
Please state your name and the item you'd like to speak on.
Yeah, Rob Klon, I'd like to speak on item 45. I think it's really tragic that we might be punting this down the road 2 years. The only person on this council who has any grounds to gripe over a lack of time for consideration of this item is Councilmember Bonin, since he was the only person who voted against canceling all of those meetings. We really shouldn't be watering something down just to get it passed either. Some of the proposed exemptions are going to make it easy for opponents to pick this thing apart at the ballot. We shouldn't be exempting single-family homes. We need to ditch the Oakland language on what exactly qualifies as a vacant multifamily unit or building. The hybrid language makes things way more complicated. Blue Sky's recommendations offer a meaningful clarity that the other lacks. This isn't a silver bullet, but it's part of the toolkit. I think back to a quote from Herb in LA Magazine 2 years ago. They asked him if he could imagine LA in 5 years and what would be different, what would it look like? He said, quote, "I hope LA would be affordable." And they said, "Now you're talking crazy." And he said, "Yeah, but I like crazy. I would like to have a city where people don't spend 80% of their money on rent or mortgage." I agree, but we're not there yet. We're a whole hell of a lot away from that. And this is one part, and we shouldn't be kicking it down the road 2 years. Thank you.
Please state your name and the item you'd like to speak on.
Hi, Sarah Ruscon, item 45.
Please begin.
Hi, my name is Sarah Ruscon with the Mountains Recreation Conservation Authority. We are a local public agency here in the Los Angeles area. MRCA manages and operates more than 75,000 acres of parkland in conjunction with our JPA, which is the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy, and 2 park districts. We hope that the council can consider the open space exemptions for various reasons. Aside from these would be agency-owned parcels that we maintain for habitat restoration, conservation, and preservation. As mentioned, we hope that the council can consider this exemption as listed in the CLA report on page 6, item 1.5. Thank you for your consideration.
Please state your name and the item you'd like to speak.
It's Eric Previn, and I'd like to speak on the only item that you're allowing for this 60 seconds, which
So
is item
please go ahead,
45.
Mr. Previn, on item 45. You have a minute. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that, Fauble. I think the greed tax is a better way to frame this, because I think people who hold on to these properties, but then we quickly pause and remember Mayor Garcetti and Gil Cedillo announcing that the only thing that matters is the supply. We have to create these luxury condos. Let them through, says Krikorian, all of them, immediately. And then we wonder why they would rather wait for the property values to go through the roof. This is a bit of kabuki theater, and I want to thank Bonin and Rue for assuming the position and not getting it done. I don't think that this is a major piece of the puzzle. I think we have to incentivize people to do the right thing in some way, and to encourage, to force possibly, but penalizing through excessive regulation is going to fail. It does every time. You've bungled the cannabis. You've bungled these very meetings as we head to the end of this little section. It's absurd that I wasn't able to speak on the regular.
Please state your name and the item you'd like to speak on.
Item number 45. Thank you.
Please go ahead.
Hello? Yeah. First, stop thanking and praising yourselves. We'll tell you when you're doing a good job. Item number 45, Mr. Bonin, don't give up on this item. This is an excellent potential source of revenue if done right. But this smells of being watered down by all these other amendments you mentioned, by corrupt Huizar and corrupt Herb Wesson, who gives away the Cumulus project, city property, 100%, 1,200 units, 100% market value with no local bill ordinance. This is corruption at its core. Herb Wesson, this is excellent. This is excellent. Your corruption, your names are all over it. This ordinance needs to pass. These city attorney.
Thank you.
Please state your name and the item you'd like to speak on.
Good morning, Council President and Council members. My name is Diana Coronado, and I'm speaking in opposition to item 45. I'm here on behalf of the Building Industry Association, an organization focused on building housing for all. We are encouraged to hear that this ordinance may not be put on the November 2020 ballot. As written in the current ordinance, we ask that the time between final map and building permit approvals be added to the exemption list. Currently, the ordinance does not protect housing projects building in that approval time frame. These projects are working to provide housing and should not be penalized by a tax. This is an example of why this measure should not be unnecessarily rushed through the legislative process, which can lead to oversights like this one. I have to mention that reviewing and gathering constructive feedback on the many items released in the 24 hours is rather unreasonable. Moving forward, we hope for a more robust stakeholder process. If we truly want housing types of all income levels, we need to look at incentives and streamlining building measures. If there is a new report, we hope these options are also included and researched. This was also echoed in the LA Times editorial against this tax. This comes on the heels of the city facing serious financial challenges, and this initiative will cost $12 million to include on the ballot. Now is not the time to move forward with this vacancy tax. Thank you for your time.
Please state your name and the item you'd like to speak on.
Hi, yes, this is Elizabeth DeCarteret with the Southland Realtors. I'm speaking on item number 45, which I am opposed to and asking for delay. It is not known how many parcels or units this ordinance will ultimately cover. Having only 1 week to draft an ordinance with no stakeholder input is just too fast. Better data is needed and further study is needed. Again, I'm opposed to item 45. Thank you for your consideration.
Okay, next speaker.
Please state your name. You have 1 minute.
Hi, my name is Matthew Pardue, and I am a member of O'Farrell's district. I'd like to support the vacancy tax being on the ballot. It's clear that our housing crisis is a direct result of members of this council cozying up to developers instead of trying to find real solutions for our unhoused neighbors. The real need in the city is for affordable public housing. We have empty so-called luxury apartments scattered across every part of the city, while at the same time, huge increases in our unhoused population. We also have council members arrested for corruption and another one that's under investigation for things that are specifically in relation to this item. Will you all continue to take the side of developers, or are you ready to let the public have a say in the issues related to the housing crisis? I will remind the members of this council that you have been a major part of creating this problem, and this is just—
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Stephen Lott, District 1. I'm calling to speak on item 45.
Please go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think, it's not perfect. You should put it on the ballot anyway. We just need to get this on the books and just start moving forward. We can work on it. If it's not working in 2020, we can work on it again in 2022. I don't see why we need to drag our feet on this. When people want to get a bid, no one needs to drag their feet about it. You all just pass it by consent. So let's go ahead, get this moving forward. We can come back and revisit it later if we need to. This is good. It's a good direction. And I agree with what people, I think it was Ryu, who sort of underbuilt middle class and low income housing, and it's been that way for years, and certainly all throughout all your tenures. And so I think this is good, and we should pass it. I yield my time. Fuck you.
Please state.
Hello, my name is Mickey Jackson. I am with AHF Housing is a Human Right. I think it is absolutely unacceptable to hold this till 2022. I go along with everything that Corette said. Give it a try. Get out there and try to do it. As he said, if you don't make it, fine. But if you do make it, we might get it. And I am very concerned that this council has dangled this in front of us and then is pulling it away. And I really don't understand what you've got to lose by giving it a real try. And I agree with the former speaker, and I adopt the comments of all people in favor of this ballot measure going forward this November 2020. Mr. Koretz is correct.
Please state your name. You have
Hello.
1 minute.
My name is Jacqueline Burbank. I'm with Housing is a Human Right.
and I'd like to echo all of the speakers in favor of the measure. We absolutely need this on the ballot, and we need it soon. We cannot wait another year or another 2 years. The vacant apartments around the city are rewarding billionaire real estate industry, and we need affordable housing. There needs to be a tax on this behavior that is creating our housing crisis. So I'm in favor, and I also agree with all of the in favor comments that came before me. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker.
Please state your name. You have
Hi.
1 minute.
My name's Sabrina Johnson. I too think that this can't be kicked down the road any longer. I want to let everybody know that exactly 33 minutes ago, Dennis Locke, LA's premier eviction lawyer, gleefully tweeted that the Los Angeles County Sheriff will begin doing eviction lockouts again as of August 3rd. So evictions are about to happen en masse again. And you know what might deter that? Vacancy tax. So you can fix it. You have the power to do that. You have the power to work a little bit of overtime this week and fix this and pass it. Or you can, and I cannot stress this enough, suck my dick and choke on it. I yield my time. Fuck you.
Okay, that concludes public comment on this item. Members is prepared to vote on this item as amended. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Blumenfield.
Blumenfield, aye.
Bonin.
Bonin, aye.
Buscaino.
Buscaino, aye.
Cedillo.
Cedillo, aye.
Harris Dawson.
Yes.
Koretz.
A very reluctant aye.
Krikorian.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Martinez.
Aye.
O'Farrell.
Aye.
Price.
Aye.
Rodriguez.
Aye.
Rue.
Aye.
Wesson.
Wesson, aye.
14 ayes. The motion Bonin Krikorian passes.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Let's go ahead and return to our regular meeting.
Madam President, would you like to adjourn the special meeting?
Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on for just a second. We're getting clarification from the city attorney. All right, let's go ahead and adjourn our special meeting and return to our regular meeting, please. At this time, let's go ahead and take up any verbal motions. I believe you've got 10 to introduce. Madam Clerk, go ahead.
That is correct, Madam President. The first verbal motion presented by Councilmember Harris Dawson is to be referred to the Planning and Land Use Management Committee. This instructs the city attorney, with the assistance of Building and Safety, to prepare an ordinance to amend the Municipal Code 98.0105 inspections to clarify the right of entry for Department of Building and Safety inspectors to conduct inspections. A seconder is needed.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Blumenfield.
A resolution has been introduced by Councilmember Lee to be referred to the Transportation Committee, prohibits parking of vehicles over a certain length and height along the following street segments: both sides of Lurline Avenue from Lawson Street to Vintage Street, and both sides of Vintage Street from Lurline to Cozy Craft Avenue. A seconder?
Second.
Second by Mr. Koretz. Next.
Thank you. A motion has been introduced by Councilmember Rue to be referred to the Housing Committee. This instructs the Housing and Community Investment Department and City Attorney to report back on the feasibility of allowing tenants in apartments without air conditioning to install window air conditioners and or use mobile air conditioning units in their homes as long as no damage or structural changes occur to the property.
Second.
And that was seconded by?
Blumenfield.
Thank you. A resolution has been introduced by Councilmember Ryu to be referred to the Rules, Elections, Intergovernmental Relations Committee to support SB 1385 Caballero, which would allow cities to approve residential development and commercially zoned retail and office spaces that are vacant or no longer viable.
Commemorate forever? Wait. Murals an official feature of Hollywood Boulevard to commemorate forever the EBLM LA March.
Mitch, you need to go on mute.
And that was seconded by Councilmember Blumenfield. A resolution has been introduced by Councilmember Ryu to be referred to the Rules and Elections Committee to support SB 1299 Portantino to provide grants to local governments to rezone idle sites used for a big box retailer or a commercial shopping center to instead allow development of workforce housing. A seconder?
Second.
That was seconded by Councilmember Blumenfield.
There's a motion introduced by Councilmember Ryu, and this one is referred to the Public Works and Gang Reduction Committee, and it is to instruct the Chief Legislative Analyst, with the assistance of the City Attorney and the Department of Transportation, to report on whether changes to the State Vehicle Code would need to be made in order to legally effectuate the Permanent Slow Streets program, and if so, to draft a resolution to support state legislative action to make the necessary changes. Is there a seconder to this motion?
Second.
O'Farrell. Seconded by Mr. O'Farrell. Thank you. Next is a resolution introduced by Councilmember Ryu. It is referred to the Rules, Elections, and Intergovernmental Relations Committee, and it is to include in the city's 2019-2020 state legislative program opposition to SB 1120 Atkins, which, if enacted into law, would require cities and counties, including charter cities, to provide for the ministerial by right approval of a housing development containing 2 residential units and a parcel map dividing a lot into 2 equal parts for residential use, and exempts environmental review and would approve these projects without discretionary review. Is there a seconder to this resolution?
Second.
Second by Mr. Koretz. Thank you. Next is a motion introduced by Councilmember Lee. It is referred to Ad Hoc COVID Committee, and it is an instruction to the Information Technology Agency in consultation with the City Administrative Officer and the Chief Legislative Analyst to report on the implementation of innovative technologies required to provide core services to the citizens of Los Angeles as they continue to deal with the COVID crisis. Is there a seconder to this motion?
Second.
Second by Mr. O'Farrell. Thank you. Next is a resolution introduced by Councilmember Bonin. It is referred to the Rules, Elections, Intergovernmental Relations Committee, and it is for the city to include in its 2019-2020 state legislative program support for AB 1436.
No, he didn't change it. He's just kind of stuck on it.
2, which would prevent landlords from applying security deposits or monthly rental payments to any obligation incurred during the COVID-19 state of emergency, and defers those rental obligations to 15 months following termination of the state of emergency. Is there a second to this resolution?
Second.
Second by Mr. Cedillo. Thank you. Finally, there is a Rule 16 introduced by Councilmember Bonin. It is regarding a Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act, or TEFRA, bond issuance regarding the educational facilities at 11350 Palm Boulevard, 3485 Sawtell Boulevard, and 3431 through 3501 Sawtell Boulevard in Council District 11. It is also to hold a TEFRA hearing on Wednesday, July 1st at the City Council meeting. Is there a second to this motion?
Harris Dawson, second.
Thank you, Mr. Harris Dawson. And that is all.
Is that it for your
Yes,
section,
Madam
Clerk?
President. Those are the verbal motions.
All right, I have two other members. I'm sorry, I have more than two. Mr. O'Farrell?
Thank you, Madam President. I need to introduce a resolution, and I can read just the moving clause if that's acceptable, but it needs to be adopted next week by the full City Council. May I proceed?
Yes, you may. Go ahead and just read the moving clause for us, please.
All right. Now, therefore, be it resolved with the concurrence of the mayor that by the adoption of this resolution, the City of Los Angeles hereby declares the All Black Lives Matter mural as a temporary feature of Hollywood Boulevard to commemorate the All Black Lives Matter Los Angeles March, which occurred on June 14th, 2020.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
That was seconded by Councilmember Price.
Any others, Mr. O'Farrell?
That is all, Madam
Okay.
President. Thank you.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Thank you, Madam President. My moving clause is I therefore move that the city attorney be requested to investigate and report on the practice of patient dumping by nursing homes in Los Angeles, especially during COVID-19 pandemic. The report should include information on how the city can take steps to hold nursing homes accountable, including through civil or criminal legal action in order to prohibit these patient dumping practices.
Second.
That was seconded by Councilmember Cedillo and Krikorian.
Ms. Rodriguez, do you have any others?
No, Madam President, thank you.
Mr. Cedillo?
Yes, I would like to request a motion for a comprehensive report back from the CLA and the CAO that would show a side-by-side comparison of the House Reform Bill, the one offered by the Congressional Black Caucus, of the President Obama's Task Force on 21st Century Policing, and other relevant state reform bills, and do a side-by-side with our city guidelines, looking at funding opportunities and policy points of interest so that we can redesign and realign the resources of the police department with the services and the policies that are consistent with the above stated proposals.
Second.
Thank you.
That was seconded by Councilmember Rodriguez.
Do you have any others, Mr. Cedillo?
No, Madam Chair, I yield my time.
Thank you. Mr. Buscaino.
Thank you, Madam President, members. One of our local legendary television news reporters, Dave Lopez, announced his retirement, a fixture and on our television sets for KCBS and KCAL News, celebrating 43 years of TV reporting in our region, covered a number of main events, newsworthy events, from civil unrest to earthquakes to fires, you name it. I first met Dave Lopez here in San Pedro in 1989 when the Eastview Little League won the Western Region Championship. And from there, he went on to cover a number of newsworthy events. So I'd like to adopt a resolution. Also, one thing I want to recognize Dave Lopez, his rock, his anchor, his late wife, Elaine, who was a teacher, gave so much to our youth in our region. In my district, Dave Lopez announced an annual $12,000 scholarship in his wife's name to the Tarbor Teacher Prep Academy in Wilmington. And we're going to miss him. We're going to miss his reporting. So with that, I'd like to read this into the record. Now, therefore, be it resolved that by adoption of this resolution, the Los Angeles City Council hereby congratulates Dave Lopez for his over 40 years of dedicated service to the residents of Los Angeles and Southern California, wishing him best wishes and a relaxing and restful retirement. Thank you, Dave, for all the reporting and all that you've done for our region.
Thank you, Mr. Busquets. I will go ahead and second that.
Thank you.
Any others, members? Seeing none. Madam Clerk, what's before us?
Council has motions for posting and referral. Motions
Posted.
will be posted on the clerk's website.
Posted and referred. Members, are there any announcements? Mr. Koretz?
No, not an announcement. I have an adjournment later.
Mr. Rue, do you have an announcement?
Yes, ma'am, I have an announcement.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam President. Colleagues, I just wanted to state that yesterday marked the 38th year anniversary of since Vincent Chin was killed outside a Detroit McDonald's for simply being Asian. For those who don't know, Vincent Chin was a factory worker. He was enjoying a night out 5 days before his wedding when two white men decided it was their right to beat the life out of someone simply because they looked different. It later came to light that his killers were angry at the Japanese automakers for competing with the big three automakers in Detroit, but it didn't matter that Vincent was actually Chinese or that he had nothing to do with the globalization of the auto industry, because to them, he was simply just an Asian face worthy of contempt. Unfortunately, if you look around today around the nation, not enough has changed. A Chinese American was stabbed in a Texas Sam's Club in this past March. Someone threw acid on an Asian American woman in New York this April. And just this last week in Torrance, someone left a note on a Japanese-owned store that said, "Go back to Japan. We are going to bomb your store if you don't listen, and we know where you live." Meanwhile, in Tulsa, Oklahoma, the President of the United States referred to the coronavirus as Kung Flu. This is nothing new. This hate has been with us for a long time, and this is why I stand with Black Lives Matter. Because through racism, the anti-Semitism, and the xenophobia, it affects us all differently, but it's born out of the same hate. And it is grown from the same root where that values white lives above everyone else's. So when Black lives are truly valued, then all marginalized communities and communities of color will be valued. Hate did not begin with communities of color. Hate began with America's original sin, the genocide of indigenous people in slavery. It's going to take a lot of work for us to atone for those sins, but I do believe that together we can do it. And in doing so, we will bring justice and dignity to Vincent Chin, to those injured by hate and discrimination, and to all communities. So thank you, Madam President, for letting me make that announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Rue. Are there any other announcements, members? Okay, Mr. Koretz for adjourning motions. Oh, hold on for just a second, Mr. Koretz. Mr. Buscaino, did you have an announcement?
Nope, adjourning motion.
Okay, Mr. Koretz for adjourning motions.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to ask that we adjourn in memory of Jerry Lynn Herndon, father of Andre Herndon, our good friend who we now know and love as the leader of the mayor's communications team. Andre is the oldest of 8 children who mourn the loss of their father, who was many things, including a world-class athlete, a devout man of faith, community leader, an accomplished media and communications expert, and a tireless mentor for youth. In 1974, the New York Times headline declared, "Herndon leaps to meet Mark," describing the latest in a series of athletic triumphs by Jerry Herndon, a UCLA student who on the day before had floated 25 feet, 4.5 inches in a long jump pit in Gainesville, Florida, setting a new record for a meet of the National Amateur Athletic Union. Jerry captured an NCAA title as a freshman that year, defeating an Olympic gold medalist and engraving his name in track and field history, just months after arriving in Westwood as the holder of a San Bernardino County record that still stands unsurpassed after 2 generations. As a UCLA student myself at the time, I remember him as an athletic superstar. Jerry was born in Ada, Oklahoma, and was one of 9 children. At 3 years old, his family moved to San Bernardino, California, where he spent a majority of his upbringing and adult life. He worshiped at Bethesda Temple Church of God in Christ as a child, where he formed a gospel singing group with his brothers and a cousin, and later at Greater Victory Church of God in Christ and Harvest Care Christian Church. As a child and a young man, Jerry was a good student and a standout varsity athlete in track and field, football, baseball, and basketball. But it was inside his family's big, sweet brew of personality, spirituality, and generosity that Jerry honed his intellect, imagination, and interpersonal gifts that would shape his life and personal dedication to faith, solidarity, and charity. After his stint as a star athlete at UCLA and student government leader, he graduated in a major of his own creation, speech communications, before he returned to his home in San Bernardino, where he worked in the publisher's office at the San Bernardino Sun. He eventually got involved in politics by mounting the Underdog campaign for city council. But what drove him was his passion for fatherhood to 8 children, and he was also immensely proud of his 15 grandchildren. His brilliance as a leader of young people was encapsulated in the professional role that defined the best years of his life as executive director of the Boys and Girls Club of San Bernardino, where he mentored, motivated more than a generation of children and teenagers growing up in the same neighborhood where he had grown up. For 15 years under his leadership, 1180 West 9th Street was a place where anyone who needed to hear yes could make a friend, get a job, eat a meal, join a team, play a sport, find an opportunity, and take countless excursions and adventures that Southern California had to offer. When his service at Boys and Girls Club ended, his humanitarianism never faded, and still in 2020, he was actively organizing health fairs through his church and independently providing food and clothing to people who were experiencing homelessness in his neighborhood. He was forever ready to start something new, and in his mind, humanity was always on the cusp of new discoveries, stronger justice, and better unity. That was his frame of mind when he departed this life on June 14th. His loss is monumental to all those who knew him, but the memories created and the legacy built will be passed down through the oral tradition that meant so much to him. Beyond his children and grandchildren, Jerry is also survived by 3 brothers and 3 sisters. He will be remembered by innumerable nieces, nephews, cousins, and his many friends who loved him like family and received that love in return. May he rest in peace.
Mr. Buscaino.
I'd like to be on that as well, Madam President. I'd like to join Mr. Koretz.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Price. Mr. Buscaino?
Thank you, Madam President. Members, I'd like to ask that we adjourn in memory of Pat Carroll. a longtime San Pedro resident, faithful friend, and community leader. We called her Pedro Pat, who passed away peacefully in her sleep this past Sunday. Pedro Pat was a passionate supporter of the arts in our downtown San Pedro historic core and generously gave back to our community by volunteering with many organizations, from Habitat to Humanity to the Grand Vision Foundation, the San Pedro Waterfront Arts District, and most recently served on the Central San Pedro Neighborhood Council. She will be fondly remembered by her contributions that included over 10 years of guided First Thursday Art Walk tours, her willingness to stay engaged with our community, and her devotion to arts education. She was a role model for graceful aging and continuous learning. I saw her in our last, when we were able to have an art walk, and she looked great. She was excited as always, and she learned Italian and always spoke Italian to me. I know we're going to truly miss Pat in our San Pedro community. The San Pedro Waterfront Arts District is looking into setting up a memorial fund in Pat's name. Our hearts go out to her family, her friends, her colleagues. Pat Carroll, may she rest in peace. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Buscaino. Any other adjourning motions? Seeing none, our meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Those across the city. My coworkers support me. They're like cheering me on, and